Dear friend, picture this. It is early September and the morning air carries just a hint of crispness. The cicadas have grown quieter. The golden light leans longer across your porch, and the soil once parched from summer's heat now feels cool and forgiving beneath your hands. This month often feels like a pause between seasons, a gentle exhale after the bustle of summer. Yet in truth, September is not the end of gardening, but a secret doorway to another beginning. While some may pack away their tools, you and I know there are still seeds eager to grow roots waiting to stretch and blossoms that can surprise us long after we think the year has given all it has to give. You don't need vast land or even endless energy to embrace this season. A small pot of lettuce on your windowsill, a tray of pansies by the front steps, or a few garlic cloves tucked into a raised bed can bring more joy than you might expect. September planting isn't about rushing or chasing harvests. It is about quiet abundance, about planting little pieces of hope that carry us through the cool months ahead. For those of us who have lived enough seasons to know the rhythm of beginnings and endings, there is comfort in realizing that life, like the garden, always offers second chances. And so as the sun lowers and the air softens, let's step gently into this month together and see what beauty September still has in store for our hands and hearts. Do you remember the first time you grew something that rewarded you quickly? For many of us, it was lettuce or spinach, tiny seeds tucked into soil that almost overnight sent up tender green leaves. September is a second chance to relive that joy. The cooler days are a blessing to leafy greens. Spinach thrives when the sun is gentler. Kale turns sweeter after a touch of frost, and lettuces of every shade, romaine, butterhead, or even a simple leaf variety seem to leap out of the ground in cooler weather. Unlike summer crops that test your patience, these greens are forgiving and quick, rewarding your care in just a few weeks. For older gardeners or those with limited mobility, this is a blessing. A simple wooden box, a wide ceramic bowl, or even a thrifted drawer lined with plastic can become a miniature salad garden. No heavy lifting is required, and the harvest is always within reach. I once visited a friend who kept a box of lettuce just outside her back door. She called it her grocery store. Every evening she'd step out, snip a handful of leaves, and toss them into her supper. It was simple, almost childlike in its ease, and yet it gave her a sense of independence and delight. That's the gift leafy greens bring in September. They're not only nourishing, they're liberating. And there's something deeply comforting in watching these plants respond to the season. They don't demand perfection. If a few leaves wilt, you can snip them away and watch new ones spring up. If pests nibble, the cooler air soon protects them. They ask for so little and give back so much. It reminds me of this stage of life, the wisdom to embrace simplicity, to appreciate growth that comes without strain. We don't need everything to be grand. Sometimes the smallest garden, the humblest harvest, is what fills us most. Planting greens in September isn't just about food. It's about hope you can taste. Imagine sitting with a warm cup of tea on your porch, snipping kale leaves as the sun sets earlier each night, and knowing that even as the year grows older, life continues to give. That is the quiet, generous magic of September. Think back to a chilly autumn evening from years ago when a pot of stew simmered on the stove and the kitchen windows fogged with warmth. The heart of those meals often came from beneath the soil, carrots, beets, radishes, roots that carried the flavor of earth and the comfort of home. September gives us one last invitation to plant these treasures. With the ground cooled but not yet hardened, root vegetables settle in, quickly stretching down where the soil still holds summer's warmth. Carrots grow sweeter as the nights grow cooler, radishes sprout in a matter of weeks, and beets with their ruby flesh remind us that beauty often lies hidden until the right moment of harvest. What makes root vegetables so special in September is their reliability. They don't need constant tending. Once sown, they quietly go about their work underground, requiring little more than a watchful eye and an occasional sip of water. For older gardeners, that means less bending, less fuss, and more joy in the reveal. I recall a neighbor who planted rows of carrots along the edge of her garden each September. By November, when the air had grown crisp, she would pull them one by one, laughing each time a crooked, twisted carrot emerged. They may not look like the ones at the store, she'd say, but they taste like childhood. There's also something symbolic about planting roots later in the year. As the world above slows down, the garden reminds us that life doesn't end, it just shifts direction. Roots teach patience. They grow quietly out of sight, teaching us to trust what we cannot see. For many of us, that patience is a kind of peace. To tuck tiny seeds into the soil now is to place faith in tomorrow's meals, tomorrow's warmth, tomorrow's comfort. And when those first radishes are pulled crisp, peppery bright against the fading colors of autumn, it feels like a gift, a reminder that nourishment still comes even late in the season. Root vegetables aren't just food. They're a story of resilience, of how life continues even beneath the surface. They show us that, like our own lives, there is sweetness and strength that deepens with time and with the cool, steady patience of September. There is a quiet kind of wisdom in planting garlic in September. Unlike lettuce or radishes, you don't sow it for an immediate reward. You press each clove into the cool soil, cover it gently, and walk away knowing you will not taste its flavor for many months. Some might see that as discouraging, but for those of us who have lived enough seasons, we understand that patience makes the harvest sweeter. Garlic is the perfect September crop because it reminds us of the long game of life, the value of preparing now for joys that will come later. I remember visiting my aunt one fall afternoon. She wore an old sweater, her hair tucked beneath a scarf, and her basket was filled with garlic cloves saved from the summer harvest. With practiced hands, she tucked them into neat rows, smiling as though she were tucking children into bed. "This is my promise to myself," she told me, that next summer I'll have something to look forward to. That moment stayed with me. Garlic isn't just a crop, it's a declaration of hope. Planting garlic requires almost no strain. You don't need deep digging or heavy lifting. A small patch of loose soil, a raised bed, or even a deep pot on the patio will do. Each clove sits about 2 inches down, pointed end up like a tiny arrow ready to pierce the future. Through the winter it sleeps, through the spring it stretches, and by midsummer you're rewarded with plump, fragrant bulbs. The waiting makes the flavor richer, almost like the garden is teaching us the art of anticipation. And beyond its culinary magic, garlic bread, roasted cloves, healing broths, there's the philosophy it carries. Garlic rests in darkness before revealing its strength. Isn't that a truth we know in our own lives? Seasons of stillness often bring forth the greatest growth. To plant garlic now is to whisper a promise into the soil I believe in the seasons ahead. That small act, humble as it is, holds a profound beauty. If garlic is the quiet promise of tomorrow, onions and shallots are its lively companions. Planting them in September is like setting the stage for comforting soups and fragrant sautés that will brighten the coldest days. These crops, much like garlic, don't demand immediate attention. Instead, they rest through the winter, slowly building strength beneath the soil and reward you with steady growth when spring unfolds. For gardeners who may no longer wish to bend and toil for hours, onions and shallots are forgiving, requiring little effort and offering dependable results. I once knew an older gentleman, Mr. Howard, who swore that his autumn onions were the secret to his long, happy winters. Every September, he would kneel beside his garden in the fading sunlight, carefully setting small onion sets into the ground. "These little fellas," he'd chuckle, "are my guarantee that spring will come." By March, when others were only dreaming of fresh produce, his green shoots were already waving in the breeze, a sign that life was stirring beneath the chill. He used to bring a bundle to his church suppers, and folks would marvel at how something planted so late could feel like such an early gift. Onions and shallots are versatile too. They don't require large spaces. A raised bed, a half-barrel planter, or even a recycled wooden crate lined with soil can host a tidy patch. The beauty is in their patience. You set them down, cover them lightly, and let the earth do the rest. They ask so little, and in return, they give a flavor that forms the base of almost every comforting meal. And perhaps there's a lesson in their simplicity. Onions grow in layers, each one hidden until you peel it back. Isn't that much like the way life teaches us? We uncover wisdom, season by season, layer by layer. Planting onions in September is not only practical, it is symbolic, a reminder that growth doesn't have to be rushed, that some of life's sweetest gifts reveal themselves gradually, and that what we nurture today can quietly shape the flavor of tomorrow. There is a certain joy in stepping out to the garden even on a cool September morning and snipping a handful of herbs for your meal. Unlike tomatoes or cucumbers, which ask for long sunny days, many herbs seem to come alive in the gentler air of fall. Cilantro, parsley, and dill in particular flourish when summer's heat has eased. Their green leaves stay tender and flavorful, and their growth seems almost effortless. Planting them now is like adding a spark of freshness to the months ahead. I remember visiting my cousin last autumn. Her garden wasn't large, just a few terracotta pots arranged along her back steps. Yet in those pots grew lush clumps of parsley and fragrant cilantro. She laughed as she told me, "I don't have the space or the knees for big gardening anymore, but I can still season my own soup." She would bring in a small bouquet of parsley every few days, adding it to her chicken broth or sprinkling it over roasted vegetables. It wasn't the size of her harvest that mattered, but the way it brightened her meals and lifted her spirits. Growing hardy herbs is also one of the most accessible projects for those of us who might have limited strength or mobility. You don't need a sprawling garden. A sunny windowsill, a thrifted planter, or even a recycled tin can become a mini herb patch. The best part is that herbs keep giving. Trim them gently, and they'll reward you with fresh new growth. Even as the days grow shorter, these small plants remain a steady source of nourishment and delight. And beyond their flavor, herbs carry a reminder that little things add richness to life. Just as a sprinkle of dill can transform a potato salad, or a sprig of cilantro can brighten a bowl of beans, so too do the small joys of daily life. Sharing tea with a friend, noticing the first frost on the grass, add brightness to our days. Planting hardy herbs in September is more than a practical step. It is a way of savoring the season, one leaf, one meal, one moment at a time. There is something cheerful about peas. Their delicate vines seem almost playful, climbing and curling as though reaching for companionship. September is still kind enough to welcome them in many places, especially the hardier varieties of sugar snap peas or broad beans. While summer heat can make them struggle, the cooler air of early fall is a gentle hand guiding them upward. Planting peas or beans this month may feel like tucking in a late note in a long song, but it's a note that carries sweetness and promise. I remember an old neighbor, Mrs. Keating, who planted peas along the edge of her wooden fence every September. By late October, the vines were dotted with crisp pods. When children from the block walked past, she'd lean over with a smile and say, "Go ahead, pick one." The kids would grin at the surprise crunching peas right from the pod. It wasn't about the harvest filling her pantry. It was about the delight of sharing something fresh when the world outside was starting to gray. Peas and beans also have a hidden gift. As legumes, they enrich the soil, fixing nitrogen into the ground, leaving it better prepared for whatever you choose to grow next spring. It's as if they know how to give twice, once to you with their tender pods and once to the earth beneath. For gardeners who dream of leaving things better than they found them, there's comfort in that. These plants don't demand much. A shallow trench, some string or netting for climbing, and they're off winding their way skyward with grace. Even a container on a sunny balcony can host them, trailing upward and offering snacks along the way. For those of us who value gentle beauty as much as practicality, peas and beans embody both. Planting them in September is like planting laughter in your garden, a reminder that even late in the season, joy still sprouts, climbs, and shares itself freely. September is a blessing for the brassicas, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. These crops often struggle under the weight of summer heat, wilting before they can fully form. But in September, when the days cool and the nights invite a sweater, brassicas stand tall and strong. They thrive in the brisk air, growing steady and slow and rewarding patience with hearty, nourishing harvests. If you've ever longed for a crop that mirrors resilience, look no further than these cool weather vegetables. I recall visiting a community garden one fall where most plots had been cleared and left bare for winter. But tucked in one corner was a bed brimming with leafy green cabbages, their heads tight and proud, ringed with dew. The gardener, an older woman named Ruth, told me she planted them every September as a promise to herself. "They remind me that I still have strength," she said, touching one of the broad leaves with tenderness. Watching those brassicas grow into November gave her a sense of companionship, like old friends weathering the season together. For those with small spaces or limited mobility, brassicas can be grown in raised beds or large pots. Broccoli, in particular, rewards you with side shoots even after the main head is harvested, offering food long after you thought the season was done. Cauliflower may need a little patience, but when that snowy crown finally emerges, it feels like a treasure. And cabbage, whether red, green, or Savoy, stores beautifully, carrying nourishment well into winter. Beyond their practicality, brassicas whisper a deeper lesson. They flourish not in ease, but in challenge, finding their strength in the chill. Perhaps that's why they feel so comforting to grow in our later years. Like us, they have learned that beauty and strength are not diminished by the cold, they are revealed by it. Planting brassicas in September is more than a gardening act. It is an act of kinship, a recognition that resilience and grace often arrive together with the cool air. When the garden begins to fade and the bright blooms of summer are only a memory, pansies and violas arrive like cheerful guests at the tail end of a party. September is the time to invite them in. With their delicate petals painted in deep purples, sunny yellows, and soft blues, they carry the brightness of spring into autumn. What's more, they thrive in cool air, often blooming well into November, and in some regions even surviving the winter to greet you again in early spring. I remember my mother's front porch planter each September. Just when neighbors had pulled up their petunias and marigolds, she would tuck in violas. By October, when the leaves had fallen and the air turned crisp, her porch still glowed with little faces of color like tiny lanterns in the dusk. People walking by would stop and smile sometimes, knocking on the door to say how much joy those simple flowers gave them. It wasn't about a grand display. It was about the comfort of seeing life persist, beauty holding on when the world seemed ready to rest. The beauty of pansies and violas is their accessibility. You can plant them in a shallow dish, a window box, or even a chipped teapot rescued from a thrift store. Their roots don't demand much, and their blooms ask for nothing more than a cool breeze and a bit of water. For older gardeners, they are as forgiving as they are charming flowers that meet you where you are, whether that's bending low in the soil or simply setting a pot near your favorite chair. And perhaps the most touching thing about them is their reminder that beauty doesn't need to be loud or lasting to matter. A small cluster of blooms on a gray afternoon can lift the spirit, reminding us that joy is often found in small, steadfast places. Planting pansies and violas in September is like writing yourself a gentle note. Even as the seasons change, there will always be color. September gardens have a way of surprising us. Just when we expect everything to fade, snapdragons and chrysanthemums step forward like actors taking a final bow. Their blooms carry strength, thriving when the heat has passed and the air turns crisp. Snapdragons, with their tall spires of pink, yellow, and red, seem to stand guard in the garden, while chrysanthemums, those full-layered blossoms, spill over pots and borders in rich shades of bronze, burgundy, and gold. Together, they turn September into a quiet celebration of color. I once visited a friend's patio in mid-October. The trees were bare and the air smelled faintly of wood smoke. Yet her patio glowed with chrysanthemums in clay pots, each one a burst of autumn warmth. On the railing, snapdragons leaned upward, still blooming as if unaware that summer had ended. "These are my joy," she told me, brushing her hand across the petals. "When everything else says it's over, these remind me it's not." That moment struck me deeply. Flowers can be such gentle companions in reminding us that beauty continues even when much has passed. For gardeners with limited space or energy, these flowers are wonderfully forgiving. Chrysanthemums come in tidy pots at garden centers, easy to set by a door or on a balcony for instant cheer. Snapdragons, though often thought of as spring flowers, thrive in September's cool weather, rewarding you with blooms that can last until frost. Neither asks for heavy work. A simple watering can a touch of sunlight, and they will carry on. There is also a quiet symbolism in planting these flowers. Snapdragons, with their name and playful mouths that open when gently pressed, remind us to keep a sense of wonder. Chrysanthemums, often associated with autumn and endurance, symbolize resilience, the ability to bloom even at the edge of winter. Together, they whisper to us, endings can still hold beauty and late seasons can carry just as much joy as the first bloom of spring. Not everything we plant in September is meant for eating or admiring. Some crops are planted simply to heal the earth. Cover crops like clover, rye, or vetch are quiet workers. They don't boast with blossoms or tempt us with flavor, but beneath the surface they restore what the garden has given. They enrich the soil, prevent erosion, and leave the earth stronger for the seasons ahead. For older gardeners, planting cover crops is less about harvest and more about legacy, a way of saying, I've cared for this ground and I'll leave it better than I found it. I remember an elderly gardener named Frank who lived at the edge of town. Every September, he'd scatter rye seed across his vegetable beds, then smile as the green shoots emerged like soft grass. I won't eat it, he'd laugh, but my garden will. By spring, his soil was rich and dark, ready to welcome new crops with strength. Frank often compared cover crops to rest. We all need a season of it, he'd say. The garden, the body, the soul, they can't always be producing. Sometimes they need to breathe. For those of us who may no longer tend sprawling gardens, even a small patch can benefit from this practice. A little pot of clover or a corner of vetch may not fill your basket, but they will nourish your soil and invite pollinators. They require no harvesting, no bending, just the simple act of scattering seed and letting nature take its course. There's a lesson here as well. Cover crops remind us that value is not always visible. Just as kindness or wisdom may not shout for attention, these plants work quietly unseen, yet their effects are lasting. Planting them in September teaches us to honor rest, to trust unseen growth, and to remember that even in stillness, life is renewing itself. There's something magical about planting strawberries in September. Unlike quick crops, strawberries are an investment in joy. Planting runners or young plants now gives them the cool months to root deeply, preparing to burst forth with blossoms and berries next spring. It's a gift you give to your future self, a promise that come June, you'll be rewarded with bowls of ruby red sweetness. I recall a grandmother in my neighborhood who always tended a patch of strawberries near her porch. Each September, she would kneel carefully, setting in young plants with gentle hands. By spring, the patch would come alive with blossoms, and by early summer, her grandchildren would gather baskets in hand, giggling as they searched for the ripest berries. She would watch from her chair, smiling her work from the autumn before blooming into joy she could share. That is the power of planting strawberries. Your care today becomes someone else's delight tomorrow. For those of us gardening with smaller spaces or limited energy, strawberries are forgiving. They grow beautifully in containers, hanging baskets, or even in thrifted wooden crates lined with soil. Their runners will spill gracefully over the edges, turning a simple pot into a cascade of green and red. They ask for patience, yes, but they repay it with abundance. And when you taste that first sun-warmed berry of summer, you'll remember that it all began with the quiet work of September. Strawberries also carry a gentle reminder some joys in life take time. Just as we wait through winter for spring to return, we wait through effort and patience for sweetness to arrive. It is a lesson in hope and endurance, in believing that what we plant today will indeed bear fruit tomorrow. To plant strawberries in September is to say to yourself, I still look forward. I still expect sweetness. And that, dear friend, is a beautiful way to live. September is one of the gentlest times to plant perennials, those faithful plants that return year after year without demanding replanting. The soil is still warm from summer, but the air has cooled, making it easier for roots to settle in without the stress of scorching sun. Lavender, echinacea, daylilies, and black-eyed Susans are perfect choices this month. Plant them now, and they will spend the cooler season quietly establishing themselves, ready to explode with life when spring returns. I once visited a friend who had filled her garden with perennials planted late in the season. She told me that September was her favorite month for this kind of work, because as she put it, I'm not planting. For today, I'm planting for all the tomorrows I still want to enjoy. The next spring, her yard came alive with waves of purple lavender, golden daylilies, and cheerful coneflowers. Neighbors often stopped on their walks just to admire it, but what struck me most was the way she looked at her garden with gratitude for the seeds of joy she had sown months earlier. Perennials also make gardening simpler for those of us who may not want the yearly labor of replanting. Once established, they ask very little, a trim here, a bit of water there, and they return reliably like old friends. Planting them in September is a quiet investment, not in busyness, but in beauty that repeats itself season after season. Even a small patch by the porch or a container with hardy perennials can bring enduring joy. The lesson perennials offer is simple but profound. Some beauty in life is lasting, not fleeting. Just as relationships, wisdom, and memories deepen with time, so too do these plants root themselves and return stronger each year. To plant a perennial in September is to plant a promise that beauty doesn't have to be temporary. It can grow with you, age with you, and return faithfully no matter the season. Word count 517. There's a special kind of hope in planting shrubs or trees in September. The air is cooler, the sun less punishing, and the soil still warm enough to welcome new roots. This timing allows young trees and shrubs to establish themselves before the harshness of winter. By the time spring returns, they are ready to stretch upward with confidence. Whether it's a lilac bush that will perfume your spring mornings or a small fruit tree that may someday bear apples for your grandchildren, September offers the perfect window to plant something lasting. I remember walking through a neighborhood where a woman in her 70s was planting a young maple tree in her yard. Her neighbor teased, "Why plant a tree now? You may not be here when it's tall enough to give shade." She simply smiled and said, "Then it will be here for someone else." That tree now spreads its branches wide, shading the sidewalk, offering coolness to children riding bikes and shelter to birds each spring. Her simple act of planting in September became a legacy, long outliving the effort of that single afternoon. Shrubs and trees don't need to be grand. Even compact varieties, dwarf fruit trees, butterfly bushes, hydrangeas can transform a small patio or modest backyard. For older gardeners, many can be grown in large containers or half barrels, easy to manage without heavy digging. These plants ask for patience, but their rewards endure: blossoms that return each spring, branches that host singing birds, and shade that softens the summer sun. There's something deeply symbolic in planting trees and shrubs at this stage of life. They teach us about legacy and continuity, that what we plant today may offer comfort, beauty, or nourishment to someone long after we've stepped inside from the garden. To plant a tree in September is to believe in tomorrow, even if tomorrow belongs to someone else. And that act, humble and hopeful, is perhaps one of the most beautiful gifts we can leave behind. Not every September planting needs to happen outdoors. For those of us with smaller spaces, cooler climates, or simply less energy for outdoor work, an indoor windowsill garden can be just as rewarding. Herbs like basil, parsley, thyme, or chives, as well as small greens like arugula or microgreens, can thrive in simple pots inside. All they need is a sunny window, a little water, and your gentle care. In return, they give you fresh flavor, vibrant color, and the comfort of having something alive and growing within arm's reach, even as the world outside turns gray. I once visited a retired teacher who lived in a cozy apartment downtown. She missed her old backyard garden, but had transformed her kitchen windowsill into a miniature Eden. Small clay pots lined the ledge, parsley in one, basil in another, and a tray of microgreens sprouting like a green carpet. "This is my garden now," she said proudly, clipping a few basil leaves for her soup. It struck me that joy doesn't depend on size. Her tiny garden brought her daily comfort, flavor, and the satisfaction of nurturing life. Windowsill gardens are especially practical for older gardeners because they require no bending, no lifting, no braving the chill. A thrifted mug, a teacup, or a small tin can easily become a planter. Watching tiny leaves unfurl day by day adds rhythm to your mornings, reminding you that growth continues even in the quietest corners. And perhaps this is the truest lesson of a windowsill garden: beauty and nourishment don't require grandeur. Even in a small space, even in late seasons, life can still flourish. Growing herbs or greens indoors is like planting a little patch of hope right in your home. A daily reminder that you are still a gardener, still a nurturer, no matter the season or circumstance. September is also the month to tuck bulbs into the soil: daffodils, tulips, hyacinths, and crocuses. These little packages of life ask almost nothing from us except trust. You dig a small hole, place the bulb gently inside, cover it with earth, and walk away. Then, through winter's frost and snow, the bulb waits silently, storing energy. And just when you've nearly forgotten them, spring arrives and the garden erupts with color. Planting bulbs in September is one of the simplest, most rewarding acts of faith you can take as a gardener. I remember visiting a widow named Clara one early spring. Her husband had planted dozens of tulip bulbs the September before he passed. That March, the garden bloomed in waves of red, yellow, and pink. She told me she sat outside every morning, coffee in hand, feeling as though he had left her a bouquet that kept returning year after year. That is the power of bulbs. They carry messages across seasons, gifts that outlast the moment of planting. For those of us who may not wish to labor heavily in the garden, bulbs are wonderfully forgiving. A small trowel, a shallow planter, even a recycled bucket can host them. They need no pruning, no tending, only patience. And when they bloom, it feels as though spring has arrived early in your heart. Even one pot of daffodils by the porch can transform the way you greet the season. There's wisdom in bulbs too. They remind us that beauty often begins in unseen places, that rest is not wasted time, and that surprises can come after long waiting. Planting bulbs in September is planting joy for your future self, a small, quiet gift that says, something wonderful is coming. And isn't that what we all need, dear friend, a reminder that even in later seasons there is always something beautiful ahead. As we walk together through the rhythm of September, we begin to see how this month is not the fading of the garden, but its gentle continuation. Each crop we've spoken of, whether it's spinach reaching quickly toward the light garlic, resting in patience beneath the soil, or chrysanthemums blooming boldly against the chill, carries with it both a lesson and a gift. These plants remind us that life is never a single season. Just as the garden has cycles of growth, rest, and renewal, so too do our own lives. Perhaps you, like me, have found yourself reflecting more often these days. The cool air seems to invite it. Planting in September teaches us that it is never too late to begin again. A new project, a small joy, a hopeful act, it all matters. Even if we cannot bend or lift as easily as we once did, our hands still create beauty. A pot of herbs on the windowsill, a patch of garlic in the corner, or a row of pansies by the front door. All of these small acts remind us of who we are, caretakers, nurturers, creators of life and color. I think of all the stories we've shared, neighbors, friends, and loved ones who found joy in planting late in the year. Their gardens gave them comfort, connection, and a sense of purpose. That is the true harvest of September. The vegetables feed our bodies, yes, but the act of planting feeds our souls. So, dear friend, as you step into this month, I hope you'll see September not as an ending, but as an invitation. An invitation to sow something small, to nurture something hopeful, to create beauty that may surprise you in the months to come. Tell me, which idea brought you joy today? Was it the promise of garlic, the sweetness of strawberries, or the cheer of pansies? I would love to hear. And if you'd like more gentle inspiration, I invite you to subscribe and visit again. Until next time, may your garden and your heart be full. Happy gardening, dear friend.